Want to give a quick shout out to all of my patrons. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. And I am done. Okay, so I just finished up reading the 11th Cycle. This is the first book from the Mistland series by Kian Ardalan. And I want to give you my unedited thoughts upon finishing this book, which was just right now. So, this book is so dope. I am blown away by how good this book was. It's just amazing. I mean, I am on a roll right now with reading amazing books. I just read 𝐒𝐨𝐬𝐿, which I said was my second favorite book of all time. This is easily a top 20 favorite book that I've ever read, maybe higher. I mean, it's nuts. And this is a self-published book that I haven't really heard anybody talking about. I'm sure some people have done reviews of this, but not enough people are talking about it. I can tell you that, because this is downright incredible. From start to finish, I was blown away. And I don't know if I should say that actually, because, the beginning of this book started slow. And a lot of my favorite fantasy books do start slow, but a lot of the worst ones do too. They just never really pick up. Oh baby, did this one pick up in ridiculously hot fashion. So this book was not on my radar. I almost never will hear about a book and then put it to the top of my TBR list. But I did on this one. I had somebody commented on YouTube and asked me when I'm going to review this book. And I'd never heard about it. I looked it up. It didn't have a ton of reviews. But the reviews that I read were the things that I'd want to hear about. And the negative reviews were the things that turned me on to it. Like, you ever watch a negative review? Maybe you've watched mine and you watched it and said the things that they hate are the things that I love. And that's what happened with me. I heard people saying it's too dark, it's too grim, it's too violent, all these things. And man, that's a huge turn on for me. I've never read a book that's too dark. In fact, there's like a direct relationship between how dark a book is and how much I like it, usually, assuming it's written well. But this is written amazing. So I reached out to the author and I asked him if I could get a review copy. He was super nice. He offered to send me a physical version, and I asked him to send the ebook to save a little bit of money. And I always feel bad, especially if I ask for a book, because, I'm always going to be honest, but I'd feel even worse if I was to, ask somebody to send me a book and spend money out of their pocket and then go and trash the thing. In general, I hate to be this, published books elitist, which I don't like to view myself as, but I do unintentionally find myself disliking a lot of self-published books, especially those that people offer to send me, which was not the case here. So it had that going for it. But yeah, self-published can be a really hit or miss. But when the plot started picking up in this book, it blew me away. It started off in this very typical, you've read lots of these books before. I've read many dozens, in that kind of like rural town, kids that you imagine are going to be the next coming, the savior of the world. Starts off slow, think Wheel of Time, and lots of books before and after that. It just felt like a generic version of that. But all of a sudden it got dark, and bad things after bad things started occurring to these characters. Hope went out the window. You couldn't imagine things getting worse, and they did. And then you think it's as bad as it gets, and then it gets even worse. There is a particular scene in this book is hands down the most brutal, tough to read thing that I've ever read in my life. And I won't give any details about what it is, but it was horrific. And I enjoyed it. I like reading really horrible things happening to characters, not because I get enjoyment out of that. I think of myself as a very, kind person in real life. I hate bad things happening to people in real life, but in books, I struggle to figure out what it is about it. And when I think about it, I come back to a couple things. One is that I don't read enough of it. I read characters with plot armor way too much. Way too much. And I hate that, because it's not real life. I want it to feel like the stakes are high, because if I feel like no character has plot armor, then it feels like the tension is ramped up to 11, because every scene we go into, there's no assurance that this character is going to succeed or even make it out of it. I love that. I also love it because it makes, and I've talked about this before, and I really feel strongly about this, but you need really, really bad things to happen in order for the great things that are going to happen, which happen in virtually all books, even the grimdark ones, that feel all the more earned and all the more excitable for me as the reader. So I need those valleys to go, with the ceilings here, and we got the bottom of the valleys, and it was just wonderful. The writing is amazing. It's this guy Kian Ardalan is very gifted at writing, and English is not even his first language, and that's crazy to me. I can't imagine how talented this person must be, even in their first language, to be able to bust this out in their second language. Now, there were every now and then, not enough to really criticize, that you'd see some wording that was a little clunky, and it wasn't an editing thing. I think it might have been just maybe a stylistic choice, but it was rare. And in general, this is very, very, very top-notch writing, and I cannot praise the author enough. The world building here was incredible. It started off, like I said, generic, but it got deep and broad and really captured the imagination. I think the author himself calls this a Dark Souls inspired fantasy book. And I didn't really get a lot of that in the beginning of the book or even the middle of the book. By the end of it, I really understood what he meant. And that is a good way to describe it if you're familiar with those types of games. But it takes a while to get to that point. The only negative thing that I can say about this book at all is the way this author writes sex scenes. And I am not some prude when it comes to these moments in books. I find that they can be very well done. And it's not that they weren't well done. It's that they are really, really graphic to the point of just being like pornography, graphic pornography. I will find often in a book that has sex scenes, they can be written for a page or two and go into a little uncomfortably large amount of detail. There were multiple sex scenes in this book that went very specific for 5 or 6 or more pages, talking about every single act that went into this. You'll find that you'll hear an author talk about foreplay or something, but once sex happens, close the curtain. Not here. And it's a weird choice. I don't want to judge the author at all, but it was a very weird choice. And every time that it happened, I kind of rolled my eyes and was like, oh, here we go. Here's Mr. Ardalan just getting his kicks out, writing this out. And but I mean, for that to be the only negative that I had in the book, that doesn't take away my enjoyment out of this book. It just kind of made me laugh at how out of place it felt at times. I mean, you'll have characters, just mundanely going through this chapter, and all of a sudden, boom, and it's kind of awkward. But it is what it is. If you're into that kind of thing, then you're gonna love this book. I tell you that. But yeah, this is crazy good. Now, is it for everybody? Heck no, it's not. It is. You have to like a dark book. You have to enjoy the things that I've said. Otherwise, you're probably gonna hate this, or it at most feel like a middle ground. But if you are like me and you like grimdark, if you like things like Joe Abercrombie, but felt like he could have gone even further, then yeah, this is the book you want to read. This is it. This series is going to go for, I talked to the author after I read it. He mentioned this is going to go 4 or 5 books. He doesn't have it totally figured out. He mentions that he knows the general plot lines, but he kind of just lets the book write itself. But yeah, I wish this was longer. But I'm glad it's not just a trilogy. I'm glad that he has a long story to tell here. I mean, I hope this book sells enough to make the author really compelled to really continue on with the series, because he deserves all the accolades in the world. I'm going to be thinking about this book for a really long time. This is one of those books that I will be more than happy to reread when the next book comes out, which he says will be probably later in 2024, at the latest, early 2025. I'm so happy that I found this book. I'm so happy that whoever it was, if you're watching this, thank you, that commented on my YouTube page, that told me about this book. I'm blown away. And I need to get more of these types. If there's more out there that I'm missing, I need to know about them. But I feel pretty confident in saying, as I sit here, I don't know that I could claim that there is a better self-published book out there that I've ever read. I can't sit here and claim it's the best, because that's my own personal opinion. But personally, I can't think that I've read a better one. I mean, I do think that it's very different, very, very different than some of the Wandering Inn books. And I guess those are technically self-published, although it's like a web serial. But since the books are coming out in ebook format, you could call it that, I suppose. And maybe I like one of those more, but it's close. And I mean, as I reflect on this book, it might even rise higher and higher, because my opinion of it being like a top 20 book was based on the first 75% of the book. And then the last 25% came, and it was the best part of the book. I mean, it had this Brandon Sanderson-esque ending to it, where everything came together, all the characters came together, major events were happening, some major reveals happened that really truly shocked me as the reader, that I don't know that I should have seen them coming, but I could have. And they were, the one in particular, there's a mystery going on during the book that you really want to figure out what happened. And when it gets revealed about who it is and why it is, it legitimately blew my mind, and in an extremely positive way. So yeah, this Mistland series, this feels like blasphemy to probably most of my readers, because my readers claimed that Mistborn was the second greatest fantasy series of all time. Yeah, the way this is going, this is the best series that has Mist in the title, that's for sure. And I love Mistborn, so don't get me wrong on that front, but this is something else. So yeah, if you like a darker book, what are you doing? Go pick up this book. You shouldn't even made it this far in the review. You should have hit pause and gone and ordered it and came back. And if you don't like a darker book, maybe buck up and try it anyways, because maybe it's for you and you just haven't realized it yet. So I'm going to stop gushing about this book here. I cannot wait for the next book to come in this installment. I feel, without a shadow of a doubt, the year that it comes out, it's going to be probably my most anticipated book for that year. It's really, in most ways, perfect. So I'm going to wrap it up there. Thank you so much for watching this, and as always, happy reading to you. Thank you so much to my patrons, with a special shout out to my Ascendant tier patrons, Ben, CJ, Danute, Jamie, Michael Sugarman, My Book is Lit, Romeo Mike, Ron Reich, Russell, and Sky.